Welcome to episode 82. As always, I'm so glad you could join me. Today's conversation is a really powerful one because we're talking about two things that hold so many talented women back: waiting for permission and getting out of your own way. Now, my guest today is one of my previous clients, Natalie Nielsen, a program director specialising in large-scale business and technology transformation within financial services. She's known for bringing clarity to complex environments, connecting strategy to execution, and enabling teams, vendors, and leaders to deliver sustainable outcomes. Her interests span system thinking, leadership, organisational effectiveness, and helping people navigate complexity with confidence. Over the course of an impressive leadership career, she's learned that some of the biggest challenges we face aren't external at all. They're the stories we tell ourselves, the doubts that creep in, and the belief that someone else needs to tell us we're ready. Now, you're going to love this episode because we explore how Natalie learned to trust her own judgment, navigate self-doubt, step into senior leadership, and create a leadership style that is authentic, values-led, and deeply human. We also talk about the role that coaching played in her journey, why reflection is an underrated leadership superpower, and the importance of building trust, meaning, and connection within teams. So if you've ever questioned whether you're ready for the next step, struggled with visibility, or felt held back by your inner critic, this conversation is for you. Now, I should also mention that Natalie and I had a few technical issues when we were recording, so apologies that the sound quality isn't quite as good as normal. But let's dive in anyway.
Natalie, welcome. So excited about having you on the show.
Sarah, it's so great to see you again. I can't wait for the conversation.
I know, because we started working together back in 2020, which is crazy.
Honestly, it wasn't until you said that to me a second ago. I don't know where the time has gone.
And you've had an amazing career in financial services, if I can say that. Could you just start off and just tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing at the moment and what your journey was like to get to where you are now?
Sure. I'm a program director working for Barclays Corporate. And I think it's very useful to just bring to life what that means for people. I guess the way I see myself is sort of at the intersection of strategy, people, client, technology, and almost that translation layer between what the business wants to build, the ambition layer, and then reality, so what we can actually deliver. And what that really means in practice is working with a whole host of people from across the organisation, working with a lot of priorities and a lot of pressures, and just basically trying to make everyone see sense, put in the same direction, and really work to build good, high-quality product for our customers, which is fairly simple to say and much more difficult to do.
You make that sound quite simple and straightforward. Well, I'm sure, well, I know from our conversations, there's been lots of challenges along the way. And what would you say has been the biggest leadership stretch for you?
Honestly, I think it's two things that are linked together. I would say waiting for permission. No one's going to be giving you permission to do things. And I think it's also getting out of my own way.
I love that. So waiting for permission and getting out of your own way. We're going to unpack that a little bit more, I think. Tell us a bit more about the first one, waiting for permission. What has that looked like and how have you navigated it?
So I think depending on what people have done in their career, a lot of it has been having other leaders provide us with work to do. Over time, what happens is, as we become those leaders and we grow into the role, we have to almost self-direct. We have to give ourselves direction. And a lot of that is actually, there isn't necessarily somebody around you to make those decisions for you. And I know when I first got promoted, I would ask a lot of people, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? And someone just said to me, Nat, what do you think we should be doing? And actually, there's no point in waiting for permission because no one's going to give it to you. You just have to learn to be able to claim it for yourself. And that's part of, I think, the maturity and the growth.
And was there a particular, like a moment, I mean, you said people kind of were saying to you, what do you think? But do you think, was there a particular moment where you just thought, right, I'm just going to do it?
I don't think it's any one moment. I think it's a gradual set of things. We talk a lot about things like confidence. For me, confidence is just a byproduct of experience. It's being in situations a number of times and then getting comfortable with being uncomfortable And I think that feeds nicely into the waiting for permission. Actually, you ask a few people, you get some support, of course you do. But over time, what gradually happens is you begin to rely more on yourself.
Absolutely. To your other point, which was getting out of your own way, tell us a bit more about that.
So I think unintentionally, we all do it. There is something around the voice in our head that tells us, are we ready to do this? Can I do this? I'm not sure how to do that. And actually, what I really need to think about is if I can remove myself, from being that blocker, the possibilities are endless. But it's almost like that voice in your head that tells you, can I do this? Can I not do that? That for me has been the biggest thing to work around. I think that's something that I've struggled with for a long time. And I think the thing that I've tried to do a lot is just work through what is that thought that actually I don't really need to pay attention to versus what is the thing, what's the next one action I can take, what's the next thing that I can do. And the more I focus on what needs to be done, building trust with the team, creating meaning, actually that becomes something that I can take tangible steps forward on. So I think there's always going to be something about being in our own way, but it's actively understanding that that's a limitation that I'm giving myself and working around it.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point to make because everybody has that voice, but it is how you manage it so it doesn't get in your own way, so you don't get in your own way. Would you say you still have that voice and some of those doubts?
I would say much less so now. And I think that goes back to the point about the conditions. When I'm focused on what I think I need to do and what I want to do, and when I can see that changing the people in front of me, that gives me more confidence and it quietens the ball.
Yeah. And I think it's so nice to hear from people out there that, because you're working at a very senior level, that you have had those doubts in the past and you've managed that, and that you might have some still, but you know how to navigate them effectively.
I think it's a really important message. Like, we're all human beings. Every single one of us have got doubts. Every single day we are learning and we're doing new things. And I think of it like driving a car. Like, how long did it take people to drive a car? You don't get into the car one day and you know what you need to do. And so I think you have to learn things in a sequence and in an order, and then you have to practice them, and then you get good at them, and then they become second nature to you. You don't think about them. And that's what I would say to everybody about their job, like, genuinely. And actually, if you're unsure or uncertain, it just means that you maybe need to learn a little bit more or do that unfamiliar thing a bit more.
I love that description of the driving car. So if we think back to 2020 when you got in touch with me about having some coaching, what was for you at that point that made you think perhaps having a coach could help me?
I got promoted to director in 2019, I think it was. And when you go from a VP to director, you're suddenly in this brand new pool of people who are incredibly experienced, incredibly talented. And you look around and you say, who am I in this space? And who do I want to be in this space? And so I think I was almost at a crossroads. And you and I found each other at precisely the right time. And you really helped me understand that space and who I was in that space a little bit better.
So it was kind of a pivotal moment for you, that promotion, and almost not a new identity, but stepping into that identity as a senior leader.
Yeah, and it probably is a new identity. Again, whenever you get a promotion, you have the opportunity to almost be a new person. And I take that really seriously. And it's a senior position. It has influence, it has gravitas, it has power. And you want to be able to represent those things. And you want to be able to do it credibly and competently.
Absolutely. What do you think were the key shifts for you having some coaching?
I would say we do not build reflection into our daily life as much as we should and as much as it genuinely needed. And I think what you were able to provide was a space of non-judgment, curiosity, and almost like an opening for me to explore things that we don't give ourselves time to do, And even if we do sometimes explore that within our own mind, it goes back to what I was saying before about whatever your mind is saying to you at the time. Whereas you gave the space, you held the space, you asked some really good questions and genuinely made me reflect on a number of different areas.
And I do think that reflection is a superpower for all of us.
Yeah.
Because you're right, we're so forward facing, so looking at what's coming next. We don't stop and look at what's happened or what we've experienced and learn from that in the same way that we're like, let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah. And that's such a good way to think about it. Reflection is a superpower. And I think another superpower that I think is completely underrated is asking for help. Just being able to ask for ask for help or ask for advice. Nobody ever says no. And so, I think these are like really simple, subtle superpowers that can make such a big difference.
Definitely. And people think if I ask for help, it kind of shows some kind of weakness. Like I should know everything at this level.
Yeah.
I remember from working with you, you were great at kind of identifying people who could help you and talking to them as a mentor, a sponsor, or just a sounding board.
Yeah. And I think the flip side is being able to ask for help is then also understanding the people around you that can help you and also the people around you and their skill sets as to what they can do. And that goes back to when I think about my role, it's almost like an orchestration. It is having the people around me and empowering them with tasks and leaning into the skills that they have to do things that they probably never even imagined that they could do.
So really enabling them. And on the final question on the coaching, what's changed for you in your leadership career as a result?
It has enabled me to be more reflective as a leader. Maybe not carving out quite as much time as I would want to. But I think along with being a superpower, reflection is it's a strategic capability. It's, to really think about what you want to do, how you want to do it, and think about how the work is shaping you as a person and how other people experience you. I think that's the thing that I got from coaching, which was something that I genuinely will take with me throughout my entire life, is that reflectiveness.
Yeah, which is, I think, brilliant because, well, I've already said, your leadership approach, I always found it so inspiring, Natalie. You talked about creating this environment for your team to thrive and for them to experiment and to be okay with trying new things, failing, for just having trust in themselves, essentially. I always found it was inspiring, particularly because you created this kind of culture, this sort of bubble of your department's culture that led to high performance within a culture that was very different to that. What's your reflection on your success in being able to do that?
I think working with you probably enabled me to be able to give words and language to that. I don't know that I necessarily knew that's how I was or how I was being perceived at the time. I think the biggest shift I have taken is that my work isn't doing tasks, it's building that trust and meaning between people, between teams, and that, what's the phrase, islands of sanity. Sometimes it's sanity, sometimes not so much. I feel like in terms of that leadership space, the more closely I can align who I am and my values to that leadership, the more sincere I am. And I think that everybody wants to work with people that A, they care about, and B, they think care about them too. And so there's quite simple building blocks, but those are the things that I'm trying to do around being relatable to each other, simplifying complexity, helping people understand each other a little bit better, and then having people lean into the skill sets and the possibility that's within them when sometimes they can't see it themselves.
I think that's so important, isn't it? That kind of true to yourself when you know you're acting in the way that you would want to be treated with your teams. It enables that culture to evolve. Yeah. And I also remember from working with you that you were doing so much outside of your job as well. I think you were mentoring women who were coming up through the bank. You were doing something with schools, I think, enabled you to kind of relate to your values. Is there anything you would want to add about how important that is to you?
Yeah. I think sometimes we base an entire identity on the career that we have, and we are so much more than just the career that we have. And I think one thing that I want to be really thoughtful about is who I am becoming through the work and who I want to be through the work. And so having those external, whether it's mentoring sessions, whether it's coaching sessions. In fact, a friend and I at work have just started a podcast called Work in Progress, which is it's all about courageous career conversations. And so yes. And so I find it really exciting that your role and your job can lead to lots of doors being open that you don't even realize are there. And I think that's the beauty of possibility and potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the title of your podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
I'll go for a link to it in the show notes for people.
Okay. Well, we might not be able to do that just yet because it is internal to Barclays.
Oh,
When I can, you'll be the first to know.
and what do you feel like you'd wish you'd known earlier in your career?
I wish that I had worried less, probably. And I wish that someone had told me your personality and who you are more impactful than some of the things that you think you need to know.
I think there's so many people who think I wish I'd worried less in my career.
Honestly, that definitely is one of them. But then also, I was reflecting on this and I was thinking, but also part of me feels like actually, sometimes you just have to go through what you have to go through to get to this stage now. And no matter what you would have been told or what advice you'd been given before, I probably wouldn't have been ready to hear it. And the reason that, each of us, the beauty of individuality is because we've each gone on our own journey and we've looked at it and we've gone, I never thought that would happen, or we didn't do that. But again, you sort of have to go through it to learn.
I love that, because if it's completely smooth all the way and you're not learning, building
You're not
resilience,
learning anything.
dealing with those challenges, it definitely shapes you, doesn't it? So I think you're right. You have to go through it.
Some of them I didn't like going through, don't get me wrong, but they've
Yeah,
definitely
but-
shaped me and moulded me and matured me.
It's the managing the anxiety so that it's not such a perhaps painful experience when you're
Yeah.
younger.
Control the controllables, right? I think that's all that we can do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously very successful at influencing in the senior room. You're, comfortable with visibility. You're doing a podcast. You're visible within the organisation and comfortable with that. So what would be your tips for other women who maybe struggle with that? The whole visibility piece, having to speak up, having to influence.
I would say that you would need to do the work. I've done the work. So, for example, learning is definitely one of my values. I'm always looking at people. I'm always thinking about role models and watching how people talk. I'm looking when I'm in senior meetings at how people implement the room, non-verbal cues, body language. I love the idea of being able to give really excellent, succinct updates in 3 sentences. And so I would say to anybody, you need to, first of all, ask yourself why you're not comfortable in that space and why. And then think about the people around you who do something really well and that you would love to emulate. How can you go about maybe taking 1 or 2 learnings from them?
That's so helpful. And I think you're right. Looking at people who are doing it successfully, doing it really well, and thinking, what are they doing that resonates with me that I could try out? Plus, I love that tip: 3 succinct updates in 3 sentences.
Yeah. I think that there's
Because we've
such
all been in
value.
meetings where someone has just gone on and on and on.
I'm in those meetings a lot. And I just think time, to your point, time is a commodity. And my challenge would be to people, imagine if you could get your point across and yet come to a conclusion, get something done in 5 minutes, right? Could you imagine how much time we would have for reflection, right?
It would be amazing.
And sorry, just one last point on that, because it's important. The other thing that I think we also always need to remember is the people that we're looking at are coming across incredibly well and so eloquently. You do not know what they're feeling inside. This goes back to the getting out of our own way. Even if you don't want to do it in your heart beating so fast, you can still practice yourself into being able to do something and do it really well until it doesn't become practice anymore. It's just normal.
Yes, absolutely. And I do have an episode on influencing successfully, which I put a link to in the show notes. Anybody who wants to listen to some more tips and techniques for that. So, Natalie, if someone was thinking about working with a coach and even about working with me, what would you say to them?
I would say take some time to think to yourself, what is it that I want? And what is it that I need? And where is it that I want to go? I think sometimes we don't ask ourselves what we want. At the moment, I love the idea of thinking like in 10 years' time, working backwards from there, where would I like to be? And so I would just say to anybody thinking about a coach, they're probably at an inflection point. But if they're looking for a safe space that is non-judgmental, where they can genuinely explore who they are, then I would highly recommend it.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I think you're right. People do need to think about, what do I want from the coaching relationship? And finally, what was it like working with me?
Well, Sarah, I don't know how honest I can be. Honestly, it was a breath of fresh air, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. I think you've got a very calm style, but you pushed quite hard. You like really made me think about, and actually there were some elements that were quite uncomfortable, like genuinely, but almost deliberately uncomfortable. And I think, I'm really grateful for those, because that's where you really do challenge yourself to do the hard thinking and come up with something that's actually really meaningful to me and things that I've genuinely taken away.
Thank you for that. And I'm sorry if it was unfortunate, but sometimes we have to go to
But
that.
sometimes we do, and this is the other thing. Sometimes we think everything's really easy and it should be easy, and it isn't. Like, life isn't easy. So, that's okay. That's okay as well, because a lot of what you gave me was also like tools for different techniques and ways to approach things and think about things. And I'll have those with me forever.
Definitely. Okay, I'm going to ask you for a tip or a technique now. So what is one leadership habit you swear by?
I swear by it, but I don't always do it, because sometimes it's quite difficult. But it is reflection before reaction.
Hey, I love that. What stops you doing it? Is it just
Sometimes I'm still quite reactive to things. And actually, now is that in the moment, I think it's more difficult. But on emails, like, I'll step away and then I'll come back, and actually my mind's clearer. A human tendency is to like jump in, and actually I'm really trying to stay quiet and sort of lean out.
I like that? I like that. Okay, Natalie, final question from me is, what does being unstuck and unstoppable mean to you?
So I think this is a great question, by the way. So I think unstuck means no longer living in the future that somebody else designed for you. And therefore unstoppable means moving towards a future that feels deeply mine. And when I think about my future, that is not necessarily more titles, it's more all the things that we've talked about. It's around aligning the work and my personality and my values and helping people think differently and lead differently and understand themselves differently.
I love that definition of unstuck and unstoppable. It's just a perfect way for us to end our conversation. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Natalie. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you, Sarah. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Unstuck and Unstoppable. There were so many powerful insights in this conversation, but the one that really stayed with me was Natalie's reminder that confidence isn't something you're born with, it's a byproduct of experience. The more we step forward, try new things and trust ourselves, the more confidence grows. I also really loved her definition of being unstuck and unstoppable. No longer living in the future somebody else designed for you, and moving towards a future that is deeply yours. What a beautiful reminder that success isn't about collecting titles or ticking boxes. It's about creating a career and life that aligns with your values, strengths and ambitions. If this episode resonated with you, please do subscribe, leave me a review, or share it with someone who you think might benefit from hearing it. And if you're at a career crossroads, stepping into leadership, or wondering what's next for you, I'd love to help, and you can find out more about working with me at Career Tree Coaching, link in the show notes. Until next time, remember, nobody is coming to give you permission. Trust yourself, take that next step, and keep moving towards the future you want to create.